Hi guys, welcome back to another Young Shrewsbury Cook Along with me, Adam. Really sorry to miss you last week. We were totally snowed under, had some staff off, so we weren't able to get all the ingredients out to those of you who have ingredients delivered. So apologies, but we're back this week with an absolute banger. The weather is miserable outside. It's properly like close to Christmas now and we can feel the winter vibes. So we're going to make a really beautiful, heartwarming beef stew with the most amazing fluffy dumplings on the top. All right. This is a dish that takes maybe like 15 minutes to put together, but then it's going to take about 2.5 to 3 hours maybe to cook. So I'm going to show you the first part of it, and then I'm going to leave you guys to it because you've been doing this for long enough now, and I trust you that you don't need me to show you the end result, and it's going to be a lot easier for me than trying to edit because I can't. I'm terrible. If anybody, by the way, wants to come and edit some videos for us, film, anything like that, if you're interested in that, hook me up, give me a shout on the Young Shrewsbury page, and if you're local, let's talk because I'd love to make these videos more professional. Cooking's my vibe, video editing is not. Alright, so hopefully you can still follow and it's all good anyway. Just realised, as in true style, I've forgotten the first thing that I need, which is some oil. So I'm just going to grab some oil, 1 second. There will be one week where I don't actually forget anything. Right, so let's get started. Right, so we've got some lovely beef stewing mince here. Sorry, not mince, stewing pieces. Really cheap from the supermarket, cheapest cut of beef. Needs to be cooked for a long time to get it to melt in the mouth, okay? If you cook this for like 20 minutes, half an hour, it's going to be like chewing rubber bullets. But give it 2-3 hours in plenty of liquid and it will be super tender. So we've got the beef, we've got some celeriac. Now, you probably may not have ever even heard of this. It's kind of like, I think it's from the celery family, but you treat it a little bit more like a potato. I'm going to show you how to chop that up and cook that in a minute. Good old Swede, you should all be fairly used to Swedes. We have some sweet potato. Just realised I've missed my carrot as well. Left it out for Rudolph. Okay, got carrot. There we go. Onions, and then a few other bits and pieces. So we've got some flour, some self-raising flour, and some butter to make some dumplings. And then I've added a few additions of some mixed herbs, some bay leaves, some thyme. I'm going to put in a little bit of mustard, you don't have to, and some Liam Perrins because I love that in everything, and obviously salt and pepper. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get the hob on and get it up to a reasonable heat. So you want it on quite a high heat to start with because what we're going to do is what we call sear this meat, okay? So I'm going to get plenty of oil in the pan. Don't be shy to put a bit in because this is a dish for like at least 4 people. So you want about 2 tablespoons of oil. Get your whole of your pan a decent like sort of little bit of oil there, yeah? Like kind of maybe like a millimetre of oil all across the bottom of the pan. And then get that pan nice and hot. So I'm just going to let that do its thing for a second and get nice and warm. Whilst we do that, you should, if you're at home and you've had one of these delivered, you should already have this in quarters. But if you haven't, maybe get an adult to help. But basically this is a big old piece of solid celeriac, so you have to be a bit careful, but we need to cut this into a quarter because we don't need that much of it, okay? So there's it in half, get rid of that half. There's the quarter down the middle, get rid of that quarter, okay? And then all we're going to do, we've got the rough bits and the roots on the outside there. Just going to use a knife to just cut that off. I'm not worried about losing too much of it. You will see there'll be like little creases all over it where it kind of has folds. It's almost like a fat person is a celeriac. It's got folds and you can kind of see inside there, like that's one of the folds. So you just kind of slice most of the folds away because otherwise they're going to be a bit tough. Alright, we should be left with about a potato sized piece. I know it's in a quarter of celeriac, okay? So that's what we've got there. Alright, and we're just going to cut that into, you think about mouth sized pieces in a stew, that's the kind of size pieces we're going to want. So I'm just going to chop that down the middle, chop that into 3, and onto its side, and then just cube it. Alright, so you want about 1.5 centimetre cubes, roughly. Alright, so pieces like that. So it's a mouthful, right? Do that with all of that bit of celeriac, and I can see the smoke is now coming off this pan, so I'm ready to move on to do searing this beef, and then we'll carry on preparing the vegetables while that's going on. But let's get that celeriac chopped first, get that out of the way. So the celeriac's done. So now this pan is nice and hot and smoke is indicating that. I'm going to take my beef, okay, I'm just going to put it straight into the pan. Hear that sizzle? That's what we want. We want to brown the outside. Now, hopefully you can hear me over that. But you need to keep it moving. Then the brown, the more you brown it, the more flavour and colour you're going to get into your stew, alright? You're going to really move that around at the moment. Get that going. And at this point, it's always good to add a good pinch of sea salt, alright? Or just normal salt if you've got normal salt. Okay, good pinch of salt. It's going to help to season that meat at an early stage and also draw some of the moisture out of it. Okay? Because we're going to add a load of moisture back in later with all the stuff that's going in this. You don't need to worry about keeping it juicy at this stage. You just need to get a nice bit of colour on it, alright? You're going to get that meat get going. Okay. Next, swede. Okay, half a swede. One big swede's too much. Okay, so again down the middle, get an adult to help you chop this in half. You do not want anyone getting injured, alright? Get rid of half. Again, top off, bang. Bottom off, bang. Get it out of the way. On its side. And then we're just going to peel. As I say, don't worry about losing little bits of it. But I'm just going to peel it with a knife, chop all the skin off. Okay. And nearly there. So that's the swede peel, and then again, just going to give this a stir. Don't let it sit in one place for too long. We're starting to get some nice caramelisation going on in the bottom of the pan here, which is great, and some of the liquid is being drawn out of that beef. You can see it bubbling away. That's because we've added that salt to it. That's what we want. So it has to sweat a little bit before we can actually get it to properly brown and caramelise. So let all of that liquid cook away whilst you're preparing the rest, alright? So we're going to go the same way as we did with the celeriac. So I'm going to cut this into 3 flat pieces, like so. And flat pieces are always easier to work with on the board than trying to work with it this way around, right? You can lay it down, it's safe. And then we're just going to go into cubes again. So across that way and across that way. Mouth-sized pieces of swede. Okay? Same with that piece. Just chop it up. And finally, the last bit. Okay. So that's that prepped. We've got a good old carrot here. That needs no introduction. I can't be bothered to peel it. You can if you want. I'm just going to take the top and the bottom off. Going to chop it in half. Remember, this is going to cook for hours, so you're not going to notice if it's peeled, but you want extra work for yourself, you carry on. Okay. Chop that into just nice mouth-sized chunks. I've just literally cut it in half, that carrot, and then into sort of like moon-shaped pieces. Again, it's a big chunk. Remember, this is going to cook for hours, so these are going to reduce, they're going to get smaller as we go, okay, because they're going to break down, and a lot of the outside bits of these cubes will become what makes the sauce thicker. Yeah. All right. So that is starting to break down. We've still got a lot of liquid coming out of that beef, so we're going to let that carry on. And just got some sweet potatoes here as well. Again, in fact, I am going to use a peeler on these. I'm going to grab my peeler 1 second. Sweet potato, you don't really want to put the skin of that in because it will be tough. So just give them a quick peel. Now these will disappear. By the time you've cooked this, you won't find any bits of sweet potato actually in the, unless you make really big chunks. But it breaks down quite quickly. But what it does is it thickens the sauce to make a really rich, delicious sauce. Because it's quite sweet as well, it brings like an extra element to the flavour zones. Alright, I'm probably just going to use 2 of those, I think, because we're going to have a very full pan otherwise. Once I've got all these veg in. But it's good. You know, they say 1 meat, 3 veg is the ratio. you need. So on your plate, you should have 3/4 of it should be veg. I know you don't like to hear that, a lot of you, but it's true. All right. So I'm just going to cut those into discs, and they can go in too. And then finally, now it says 1 to 2 onions. Depends how big your onions are. These are quite big, so I'm going just with 1. All right. So chop the top and the bottom off. I'm going to put them in real chunky today, because I want to know they're there. All right. We don't want these to disappear. We want to get the odd lump of onion. In fact, you know what? I might even put 2 in. It's entirely up to you. There's no rules necessarily. If you like onion a lot, put more in. If you don't like onion, still put 1 in, cut it smaller, and by the time it's finished, you won't even notice it. So I've just cut that into 8 sections. Okay, so there's the half an onion. Show you this again. Cut it in half across the middle. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah? Done. Very, very easy. Right, the onions are going to go next. Right? Because that is starting to crystallise now. Caramelize. Most of the liquid has gone. I'm just going to fry those onions off in that liquid with the beef. Like so. And this is really simple now. We're almost done with this stew, believe it or not. It's crazy, really. Alright, so we're going to stir those in. Just let them sweat for a sec. And then, once you're happy they're starting to sweat, I don't like to put everything in all at once. We're going to go in with the sweet potato. Just because if you put everything in all at once, imagine like if you put sort of, I don't know, 10 cups of tea in the fridge at once, right? It's going to bring the temperature of the fridge up massively, really quickly. Same as this, if you put all this veg into a hot pan that's cold out the fridge or out the pantry, then it's going to bring your temperature of your pan down too much. So adding it bit by bit means you don't lose too much of your flavour. Now we've got a few people who are following this, who are doing it on barbecues. And what I would say to you, if you want a nice barbecue flavour, instead of cooking the beef in your pan, cook it indirectly with a bit of smoke on the one side of the barbecue, yeah, for an hour, and then put it into the pan. And you're going to put loads of smoky flavour in there as well. You can also cook this on your barbecue, indirect, really low and slow, instead of in your oven or on the hob. We'll talk about how we're going to cook it a little bit later on. Aston, I'm talking to you. I want to see big things this week. Alright, so, okay. So all my liquid's gone there now. You can start to add in the carrots. Okay, easy. See the mess here, we'll clear that bit later, not a problem. Right, so work my carrots in. It's got a little bit of onion skin there, got out. There it is. Don't want that in there. Alright. Okay, so carrots are in, and now we're going to go in finally with the Swede and the celeriac. Okay, so the celeriac's acting as our potato today. If you can't get hold of the celeriac, potato will work fine. Nice big chunks of potato, lovely in a stew. I love celeriac. That's got a real nutty, tasty flavour. If you haven't tried it before, definitely get it in. Yeah, if you can get hold of some. All right, now everything's in there. So I'm just going to start working to the bottom. And what I'm also going to do, I'm going to take some flour, just from this flour is what I'm going to make to use the dumplings. So 300 grams of flour for dumplings, 350 in total. Then use 50 grams roughly of flour in there. That's going to help us again to thicken our sauce. All right. Put that to one side. So now I'm going to work that flour through everything. So it'll almost disappear within a few minutes, and then it'll start to brown and caramelise. It's going to give you good colour, and again, that caramelisation brings loads and loads of flavour as well. All right. I'm just going to keep working that through, like so. So you'll see that the flour becomes quite tacky and sticky, and you'll also notice if you work through everything and get to the bottom of the pan, it'll be starting to get quite brown and almost probably quite quickly start to burn on the bottom of the pan. Now we don't want it to burn at all. So once that flour has kind of worked in and you can see that it's browning off and caramelising, what we then need to do is add in a litre, it's quite a lot, of beef stock. Okay, so a couple of stock cubes in some water, hot water. I'm just going to slowly top up that pan. So the liquid is going to come right up over pretty much everything. Now if you haven't stirred it very well, like me at the bottom, give it another stir. Don't waste any of that flavour. See a big bit of sludge in the bottom there. I'm just using normal stock cubes here. If you've got time to make beef stock, then brilliant, do it. But we didn't have time today, alright? So it's going to look really, really watery now, okay? You're going to look at it and think that does not look like a stew. But bear in mind, it has got another 2.5 hours to cook, right? If you don't have enough liquid in there, you're going to end up with a really thick, horrible stew. By the time that this is reduced over that time, you're going to have a really nice thick sauce. Because also, those vegetables are going to break down and help to thicken the sauce as well as the flour. Okay. What I'm doing now is I'm just working my spoon along the bottom of the pan just to feel if there's any bits that caught, anything that's there, just loosening them off. Right. That liquid's going to loosen everything up, relax everything. Okay, and then we're just going to add the finishing touches. So if you want to add anything else to a stew, by the way, it's entirely up to you. Don't follow me, to the hilt. So I got given a load of tomatoes that are going to be thrown away by the food hub the other day. I love a bit of tomato, so I'm going to put some tomatoes in mine. You might not want to put them in. I'm putting just in whole baby plum tomatoes. That is not part of the recipe. It's not in the list. Okay. Then we're also going to add in some Liam Perrins Worcester sauce, just because I love it. Gives an extra bit of umami. So umami is the fifth flavour. Okay. So it's something like when you get your salt, your sort of sour, your heat, your sweet together, everything comes together and it brings you this new flavour, which is umami, and this stuff brings it, right? So get some of that in if you've got some. And also beef and mustard are best mates, so I'm going to put a big dollop of English mustard in there. Again, that is not compulsory, you do not have to put it in, it's entirely up to you. Okay, I'm going to get another pinch of salt, although you don't need too much salt because there's salt in the stock already, alright? So you don't need too much salt, but just a pinch. And then also some mixed herbs or some thyme we'll do in there as well. About a tablespoon of mixed herbs, which most of you, if you're doing it through Young Shrewsbury, have had those delivered in the past, so go and check your cupboards. Okay? And then just work everything in together until it comes back to the boil. Alright? So there we are. So I'm going to leave that to do that, to come up to heat. Alright? Now, next thing, I'm going to show you how to make some dumplings. Really, really easy. Okay? So all you need is 300 grams of self-raising flour. Okay? And 125 grams, or more easily said, half a block of butter. So I'm just going to whack that in half. Okay? Save that for later. With your butter, just going to break that into little cubes, alright? So you're going to go, probably get about, I don't know, 12. So put it into 3 and then 4. So these little bits, and this is going to help you to kind of work it into the butter. So put those cubes independently into the butter. So just dot them all over the flour even. Dot them all over, okay? Like that. And this is salted butter. And there's plenty of salt in it, right? So this is boiling now, so I'm going to take it down to the lowest possible. There we go, down to the lowest setting. So that's just ticking, okay? Do not want that to be really, really raging, okay? Right, so got my butter bits in there. Now all you need to do, you ever made a crumble and they say make it into breadcrumbs? It's exactly the same thing. So you're just going to get your hands in there, okay? And you're going to rub. So there's a piece of butter covered in flour, okay? I use my thumbs and my fingers to kind of crush it and rub it into the flour, yeah? And you need to spend a few minutes doing this. So there should eventually be no feel of actual solid lumps of butter in there. All you should feel is that the flour is kind of thickened and become more like breadcrumbs than it is when you start out, okay? So every piece of that you've chopped up there, and it's helpful if you use cold butter and cold hands for this, because obviously if the butter's melting, it kind of can get a bit messy, alright? So that is ticking away nicely there now. I'll show you what to do with that in a minute, but we're going to get these dumplings done first. Okay? So keep rubbing all that butter and flour together. Now these dumplings, they don't go in to here until the last 20 minutes. So when you're nearly ready to cook it, when you've tested your beef and it's soft and it's ready to go, that's when to put your dumplings in for like the last 20 minutes. Okay, but it's good to get them ready now, so that all you got to do now, see, I'll probably go out on my bike or something, yeah, go out and put this in. I'm going to cook mine in the oven. You can cook yours on the hob or in the oven or on the barbecue if you want. It's a really miserable day, so I'm not lighting my barbecue today, so it's going to go in the oven. But you can get this in the oven, go out for a nice long bike ride or something, come back, and guess what? Dinner's going to be ready, because that will be wicked. And all it'll mean is these dumplings get dropped on the top, 20 minutes, and you'll have the most delicious beef stew and dumplings on a winter's day, after you've had your shower as well. That's the thing, put these in, get in the shower, get changed, get all ready, pour yourself a nice drink, obviously non-alcoholic for you lot. I'll probably have beer as it's the weekend. And yeah, just making life easy really. This is, you know, this is long cooking, hearty food, which I'm just showing you doesn't need to take very long at all to make. Right, so my flour, I can't really feel any lumps in there now, or there's a few actually, one or two. Just keep working it. I'm sorry this is in real time. I'm just showing you how easy it is, and also because, like I said, I can't edit, so you know, if people want to come, I could really do with somebody to edit next week, because next week we're going to be cooking a full Christmas dinner, and there's no way you can watch that in real time because it takes a few hours. Alright, but I'm going to show you all the little tricks that I have for making really tasty and easy Christmas dinner bits and pieces. Alright, so I'm going to have to find someone to edit that for me, but we'll worry about that next week. Any volunteers, please do give me a shout. Right then, okay, so that is now all rubbed together. So what I'm going to do is obviously I've forgotten my water, so I'm just going to grab some water and I'll be back 2 seconds. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I've got a knife as well, okay, kitchen, just like a butter knife. Just going to put a splash, see how little I put in there, and I work that in with a knife. And once you see that all of this flour starts to come together into big clumps, which I will show you on the camera once I've got there, so I'm putting a little bit at a time. Don't add too much water because it could easily be too much, and then you can't take it out again, alright? So I've put 2 splashes in and this is already looking good. So you see how that's starting to clump together? There's still a little bit of very loose flour on the outside, so I'm going to go for one more splash. I'm really thirsty as well. Oh, excuse me. Right, luckily I'm eating at home. Not very hygienic if I was doing this for the public. But there we go. Right, so putting that together. Now, so that flour, now that's kind of got to a point where if it looks like you could probably mould it into a ball, then that's it, all you need. Because there's so much liquid in there, it doesn't need to be really wet. These dumplings can be quite a dry mix, okay? Because, as I say, they're going to soak up all the flour that's actually already in your stew, okay? So I've just basically pulled all that together. You don't need to work it too much, but you've just made a really simple dough. Now, you guys have made enough dough now, making pizza, making all sorts, that you should know what a dough looks like. This is nice and soft, okay? And that's going to make about 8 dumplings. So I'm going to cut that in half, there. So that's 2. Cut that in half again. And that one in half again. That's 4. Guess what? Half again, half again, half again, and half again. 8 dumplings, right? So then what we're going to do is just mould those together into little balls, and they can go back in to the bowl and just wait for when we're ready to cook them. So do those, 1, 2, so 2 dumplings per person, 4 people. This is a nice meal for 4. Okay, 2, 3. Don't need to count, you can count. But yeah, you get the idea. They don't have to be perfect. Just roll them into rough balls like that in your hand. Put them to one side. And then all we're going to do is, so now, what I'm going to do is put the lid on this. Now it's important that you put a lid on it. You can't cook a stew well, you know, with it being open unless you've got lots and lots of liquid, because all the liquid's going to evaporate. So what we're going to do, if you haven't got a lid, the If you cook it on a hob, okay, and you've got a lid, I mean like a gas top or whatever like this, okay, just put the lid on and get it on the lowest possible setting you can, really, really low. Or you can put it into your oven at about 130, so very low as well, okay, for about 2.5 hours it's going to need, like super low. Keep an eye on it. If it does get really, really low on the liquid and looking like it's getting too thick, just top it up with a little bit of water and it'll be absolutely fine. Okay, then, as I say, 20 minutes before you're ready to eat it, you're going to take your dumplings, place them evenly on the top, okay, around your stew, lid back on, and that will have come down quite a lot by then, okay, lid back on, another 20 minutes, and it's ready. And that's me done, really. I can't show you the end result. What I will do when it's actually made, is I will post a picture of the end result on the front cover, on the screen, you know, on the thumbnail, that's the word, yeah? The thumbnail will be my end result, okay? And I might even put it onto our Instagram and our Facebook as well, so you can have a look at that, what it should look like. But I'm fairly confident that you can smash that, okay? So that's beef stew in, I don't know, 20 minutes. Hope you enjoyed it. Next week is going to be the big one for Christmas. I hope you're going to join us. I'm Adam from Young Shrewsbury. See you guys next week.